Ghost Stories of Old New Orleans, 1900, The Witch of the French Opera. Madame Marguerite Sauvé stood behind her glistening counter of delectable French pastries. Her shop was in Bourbon Street, a square or two from the old French opera house, where Madame had been a chorus girl for more years than she ever acknowledged. Madame's head was held high as usual. The liquid poudre blanche, which she used lavishly, made her features into a sort of mask from which her dark eyes flashed pleasantly like discs of jet. Her black hair, well brushed with dye, was piled high on her head after the mode of that period. Her eyebrows also were brushed with the dye and made an imposing setting for her quick eyes. As a matter of fact, Madame had been born Marguerite O'Donnell in the year 1842. Her mother was French, but Michael O'Donnell was only 3 years from Ireland. She was Maggie O'Donnell in those days, with 5 husky Irish brothers and 7 buxom Irish sisters. She was the baby, was Maggie, and the only French-looking one in the lot. She married Octave Sauvé when she was 18. The war between the states took all of her brothers and 4 of her brothers-in-law. But Octave came home without a scratch. He grew sour and crabbed enough as the years went on, and no babies were in prospect. What was life without little ones to frolic with and plan for? He berated poor Maggie until she was sad and resentful indeed. "Sure," she wept, "it isn't as if I could find a baby in the rain barrel." "You do not care for me as you should," scolded Octave. "So le bon Dieu looks into your selfish heart and punishes you by sending no little ones. But me I am punished also, and I do not deserve." There was an eternal wrangle in the house. At length Madame could endure it no longer, so she applied at the French Opera House for a place as chorus girl. She was 33 at the time, but she said she was 24. She could sing, oui, and she could dance with a little training. Octave worked at night, and he never knew. She was very particular about that. During the yellow fever epidemic of 1878, she lost every member of her family. Octave sickened and went last of all, so down the years she lived in one shabby room, applied the liquid poudre blanche and the hair dye a little more heavily, and cut a year or so from her age every time she had occasion to refer to it. In 1900, old Monsieur de Beauce-Blanc took a fancy to her. Heaven only knows why. Perhaps because he was half blind and could not see how brown and withered her skin was under the peau blanche, and how unsteady her fingers were as she poured his champagne. Maybe it was desperation on her part, for Maggie O'Donnell had been a virtuous girl, and Marguerite Sauvé had been a virtuous woman. But old Monsieur de Beauce-Blanc, who had no end of money, took her to his house and to his bed. He dressed her in silks and gave her diamonds and a lady's maid, and when he died 3 months later, he left her $10,000. Madame Sauvé was a bit bewildered. She had moved out of the de Beauce-Blanc mansion within an hour after its master's demise. With part of the money, she opened a pastry shop. Les Camélias, she called it. She acknowledged 40 summers, dressed in severe and intensely fetching black, and managed her pastry business like a veteran. Everybody who went to the French Opera House flocked to Les Camélias. Its orange sherbet was famous, its delicate puff tarts, its heavenly gâteaux, the frostings and the icings and the glaces, the chocolatière that was always full and steaming hot, the dragues and meringues and darioles and the pâtés brisés, the crème au vin, ooh la la, they were every one divine. Expensive, oui, taste heaven and died bankrupt. There was nothing so fine in all New Orleans. So Madame stood behind her counter. A faint smile hovered about her firm lips. Septime, the pastry chef, was not doing as well as formerly. But she had an ad inserted in various newspapers, as was her method. Baltimore, Charleston, Savannah, Tampa, Mobile, Galveston. This morning she had received a reply from one Carlos Alfaro, now in Tampa. He was 21 years old, he wrote, had been in this country un año, and understood l'anglais sufficiently, and was a master hand at making fine pastries. He added that he was related to the illustrious General Elroy Alfaro, President of Ecuador. All of which Madame took with a grain of salt, except the pastry making. He wrote variously of that, in a manner to convince the most exacting. Very well, she would send for this relative of the illustrious general. He could not be worse than Septime, who was at this moment wasting almonds and messing in the tin of the best French chocolate. She hated that Septime, who was always tilting his head and asking impertinent questions. This Carlos now, he was young, alarmingly young. But she could manage him. She would keep him well under her thumb. He might be interesting. Most of the tables in Les Camélias were filled. Madame smiled and nodded graciously. Only a few years ago she had been bowing and smiling to these same people from the great stage of the French Opera House. They were too young to know that she had joined the chorus in 1875. Oui, madame, the ices are delicious, the pastries are delicious, they chattered. Les Camélias is enchanting. We shall come again tomorrow, of course. No wonder madame beamed and purred. Everything she touched seemed to turn to gold. Everything was going like clockwork, except that Septime. Today he had twitted her openly about the poudre blanche. Well, she would soon be rid of him and his foolish tricks, telling her that she should have a husband to run Les Camélias. A husband indeed. Every woman knew that a husband was a hindrance and a nuisance. That Septime wanted his hand in the cash drawer. A pretty plan. So Carlos arrived, and Septime departed. Carlos was slender and dark, with gentle ways, and eyes as fathomless as those of a fawn. His fingers were nimble, and he knew something about making of fine pastries. But had his eyes not been so beautiful, Madame would have sent him packing before the day was out. Pastry chef, pah! Pastry helper, oui. But amid all those marvelous creations which Septime had been wont to produce, this Spanish boy was lost. Madame was in despair. She would teach him herself. True, he was eager to learn, so she poured forth the secrets she had absorbed from Septime, and from Francois before him, from Victor before him, and from Eugene before him, who was the first in Les Camélias. Carlos listened attentively and daily grew more proficient. Madame Seville was a trifle at a loss. She was conscious that her first waking thought was of Carlos, that her heart leaped when she saw him entering the door of Les Camélias, ready for the day's work, that all day as she flitted back and forth, she lived only when she paused beside the slim Spanish youth in the spotless apron and the tall starched cap. When he turned his dark eyes upon her, she trembled and panted. When he spoke, she stood rooted to the spot. When he sent in some special triumph for her approval, she all but expired with ecstasy. I shall double your salary from tomorrow, Madame responded. You are my angel, my life. Come and live with me here, Carlos. No, Madame, it is better if I do not live here. It would occasion a large scandal, and that would be bad for business. You break my heart when you call me Madame. Call me that other name which means summer in your language. You mean El Verano? But that would be a man's name. Better than any new spring, La Primavera. Dear Madame. She nestled closer to him. He called her spring. He did not know of the wrinkles behind her ears then. She would be careful to smear the poudre blanche on especially thick, perhaps a touch of rouge on her lips. If one moistened it with glycerine, it did not come off. Her weary lids closed over her arching eyes. Carlos laughed and sneered when he saw her old face lying on the pillow at dawn. But Madame was asleep and knew nothing of the laugh and the sneer. Presently, Carlos began to whine a little. He was overworked. He had no time for amusements of any sort. He was young. Madame was making a slave of him. One night, when they reached the door of her apartment, he refused to come in. Oh, but my dove, my precious one, Madame exclaimed in horror and amazement. I have brought my arms full of the choicest pastries. There is wine, there is tobacco, there is an incomparable bed, and there is me, myself. Ah, you must not say you will not come in, Carlos. I am here too much, he replied petulantly. I think people are beginning to notice. You should let me out more from the pastry shop. I come too early and I leave too late. It's killing me. But Septime worked longer hours than you, and so did Francois and Eugene and Victor. But you did not love Septime and Francois and Eugene and Victor. Or did you? Mon Dieu, non. What are you saying, Carlos? Me? Love those crepas, those pus? Surely you are fooling, Carlos. But they were your pastry chefs. I am only your pastry chef. How do I know? But you are the only one, the jewel of my heart, my life's adorable one. I keep telling you. Those others, I could not have endured their touch. I would have sent them to jail if they had so much as hinted at romance. Yet with all your love for me, you work me as hard as you did them. It's not fair. I do not believe you love me at all. Oh, Carlos, what is it you want? Madame was in tears. I want to work 3 hours a day only. I am high class. I bake the Spanish delicacies which no other chef can create. You bake what I taught you and very little else, and you are lazy too. I pay you too much now. It was Maggie O'Donnell who spoke, but it was Marguerite Savard who burst into a storm of weeping and begged only that Carlos forgive her for being a hard-hearted fool. She would permit that he work but 3 hours a day, of course. And I will not work on Sundays, and I need $10 more a week for clothes, mia primavera, he said, putting his arm around her and helping her to unlock the door. See, of course I will come in. I was only playing before. But I need clothes. You know that, querida mia. Of course you shall have clothes, my precious. Go to the store where I have an account. Buy anything you wish. What is mine is yours. Ah, Carlos, why can we not be married? We could manage the shop so beautifully. It is a divine idea. Not yet, Marguerite. I should have more experience. It will mean a great following for us. We must not get into the rut. Later we will talk of marriage. No man of sense marries before he is 30. Very wise, Madame assented joyously. Marriage with Carlos. What did it matter that she would be 67 when Carlos was 30? He would not know. There were many things which could be done to aging skin. Warm tallow, hot olive oil. She could say she was 38 or so. She spread the pastries on her marble-top table. Carlos drank too much wine and grew painfully unpleasant. I think I shall call you Lisette, he babbled sleepily. Lisette is a niche name and a niche girl. What are you talking about? Madame demanded in alarm. I'm talking about Lisette. Niche gal, Lisette. Not old hag with bags under eyes like you. Lisette, niche young girl. Bangle on her arm, says oui when I ask her, always oui. Niche Lisette. Then she crept in beside him, shaking with terrible sobs. How much of this Lisette babble was true? Was there a girl then? She had made her will, leaving everything to Carlos. On the morrow she changed it, leaving him nothing at all. That Lisette. Later, hearing no mention of the girl, she grew contrite, but she did not change the will back again. She engaged a chef to assist Carlos, who now worked only 3 hours a day and not at all on Sundays. She paid Carlos an enormous salary. He had purchased marvelous clothes. How she adored him. He was charming to her now. When he came into La Camellias during his off hours, he was most stunning. Madame introduced him to 2 or 3 of the older customers as Senor Carlos Alvaro of Ecuador. They did not know that he had built the puff tarts they were consuming. They invited him to their homes and introduced him to dozens of their own friends. His name began to appear in the society columns. He had a room at the best hotel, such a good address. He was quite the rage, with his emerald ring and his walking stick and his slight, delicious accent. The girls loved his manner. The ladies loved his delicate compliments. But Madame Save, she was forgotten. They had merely met him in a pastry shop. She was so desolate and discouraged. What was life for, anyhow? She should have known he did not care. So things went on for half a year. Then, one summer night, Madame was returning to her apartment earlier than usual. She saw Carlos walking in front of her. Carlos and a girl. He appeared to be fond of the girl, who was as blonde and blue-eyed as Madame. Madame passed her apartment and followed them. They turned at St. Anne, walking a few doors riverward. Madame's heart was in her throat. Carlos was going inside with this hussy. No, no, Lisette, came Carlos's voice, laughing. You won't lock the door on me tonight, will you? So it was Lisette. Madame reeled against the wall, faint with misery and rage. Life, which had opened for her a golden door into paradise, had banged it in her face. Carlos was hers no longer. Carlos belonged to Lisette. The dark enveloped her. One day Carlos did not come to work. Madame put on her small chic hat and went to St. Anne Street. She did not ring. The door opened at her touch. She ascended the stairs and opened the first door she came to, quite at random. But she opened it noiselessly. The room was in disorder and not very clean. The dresser was a mess of cosmetics and brushes and bottles and soiled linen. An open letter lay on the table, and Madame bent over it. Darling Lisette, your Carlos. It was too much. On the bed, two people slept soundly, Carlos and Lisette Leboeuf. A great rage seized Madame Sauveur. To claw, to tear, to kill, to strangle, to torture, to crush. A fiend shrieked at her, bidding her to strike as they slept. Then Carlos snored. Madame drew back. Not now, not here. There would be another way. Silently, she circled about the apartment. In one corner, behind a cheap, red-flowered screen, stood a table holding a glass plate and a few unwashed dishes. A mouse was nibbling at a bit of brioche. A cockroach was examining a scrap of cold meat. A sugar bowl was black with ants. Madame turned away in disgust. Not now. Not now. Life was over for Marguerite Sauveur. She was 60 years old, and she had made a prize fool of herself. Nothing mattered now. It was the end. Monsieur de Bousblanc's money had brought her nothing but agony and defeat. She went back to her own apartment and locked the door. How still the rooms were, as though someone had died. Well, she thought bitterly, I have died. My life has gone for nothing. No children, no husband, no lover, no place in all the world. My shop is only a shop where people come to buy dainties for their stomachs. I stand behind the counter and bow and smile and serve them. I am nothing to them. Carlos does not love me. He never did love me. I was a good thing. How he must have laughed. $150 a week, 3 hours work a day, clothes, a charge account. What a fool I have been. I shall always be a fool. There is no use living if one must always be a fool. She sat down at length and wrote a letter to the police. She was committing suicide, she told them, and no one was to blame. But, she added, she would be coming back. She had work to do, and her ghost would be coming back, and they couldn't stop her. And then she shot herself through the head. There was the usual 3-day hubbub. Madame Sauveur was dead. The Camellias was closed. The help were all sent away. Carlos Alfaro shook his dark head and wondered where he could find another job. Then he went to tell Lisette Leboeuf. Lisette was not overly pleased. Carlos had made a bungle of things, but they spent the day together and retired early. About midnight, some late wayfarer saw a white shape coming out of the old French opera house. It went down Bourbon to Toulouse, then to Royal, and turned to the corner of St. Anne. It glided silently along the banquette, its snow-white hair wreathing a dead white face. The eyes were like flaming torches, and the mouth was tight set. It paused at a door a little distance from Royal and went in. A girl of rumor in the place saw the shape coming up the staircase. Being an artist and curious, she neither screamed nor moved. The shape passed her and went on to Lisette Leboeuf's door. I saw her plainly, the girl declared afterward. It was Madame Sauveur, who kept Les Camellias, the pastry shop. But, she was reminded, that is impossible. Madame Sauveur is dead. Nevertheless, she contended, it was Madame Sauveur who came upstairs and went into Miss Leboeuf's room. The shape glided into the room where Lisette Leboeuf and Carlos Alfaro were sleeping. The place was very dark, but the shape knew the way. It walked to the red-flowered screen. The ghostly fingers fumbled at the gas plate and turned on the gas. The white shape closed the windows tightly and went out and locked the door. Then it trailed wearily down the street and passed and out onto the banquette, where it startled passers-by, saw it peering in at a shop window. When he spoke to it, it vanished. They found Carlos and Lisette in the morning. The coroner called it suicide, but the little artist said a ghost had murdered them. She was laughed at, of course, but she stuck to her story. From that time on, whenever a new tenant took possession of the room where Carlos and Lisette had died, a white shape came from the old French opera house, went down Bourbon to Toulouse, and thence to Royal. It turned the corner at St. Anne and glided up the stairs. For years this went on. The neighborhood took to calling the shape the Witch of the French Opera. Finally, a new tenant of the St. Anne Street room found a letter written in fine, pointed hand in faded ink crammed between the mantelpiece and the chimney. The words were blurred. Darling Lisette, and down at the end, your Carlos. The tenant tossed it into the fire. Suddenly, a white shape stood beside the fireplace, uttering little moans and mewings, and reaching a desperate, ghostly hand into the flames. But the paper was gone. Its feather ash flitted up the chimney in the draught. The white shape seemed to shrink and shrivel, and then it disappeared. The tenant remembered only the eyes, like torches. The Witch of the French Opera never walked again.